ஏதன் கண்ணே நிலையாகி இருந்திடும் உலகமெல்லாம் எதனதெல்லாம் எதனின்று அனைத்துலகும் எழுமோ மற்றிவையாகும் எதன் பொருட்டாம் எதனால் வையமெல்லாம் எழுந்திடும் எல்லாமும் எதுவேயாகும் அதுதானே உலகொருளாம் சத்தியமாம் அச்சொருபம் அகத்தில் வைப்பான் அகில வேதாந்த சித்தாந்த சாரத்தை அகமுண்மையாக அறிவன் அகம் செத்து அகம் அதுவாகில் அறிவுருவாம் அவ்வகமே அறிவுருவாமம் அகமதே மிச்சம் அறி அகில வேதாந்த சித்தாந்த சாரத்தை அகமுண்மையாக அறிவன் அகம் செத்து அகம் பகவாகில் அறிவுருவாமம் அகமதே மிச்சம் அறி Namo Ramana. With Bhagavan's immense grace, we find ourselves meditating on the last verse of Ulladu Narpadu Anubandham. Akila Vedanta Siddhanta Sarathai Ahamunmaiyaga Araivan Aham Settu Aham Aduvahil Arivuruvamam Ahamade Micham Ari. In this verse, Bhagavan is going to sum up the essence of Vedanta in one sense, or the essence of Vedanta and Siddhanta together. Because the word Siddhanta can itself be taken to be quintessence. So there are these two ways in which the various great ones who have meditated on these verses have taken root. That Ramana is summarizing or giving us the essence of the whole of Vedanta, or the essence of Vedanta and Siddhanta put together. Akila Vedanta Siddhanta Sarathai. So the essence of, since the Saram is again used, we can take it that Siddhanta stands for Siddhanta and Vedanta for Vedanta. And Bhagavan is saying, I am going to sum up and deliver that essence. Ahamunmaiyaga Araivan. I am going to proclaim that I, which Bhagavan is taking here in the second sentence, is the pure I. Ahamunmaiyaga Araivan. I am going to proclaim as the truth of the essence of Vedanta and Siddhanta. What is this? Aham Set Aham Aduvahil. When the ego or the false I is completely demolished, is put to the sword, the Jnana wall, Tunga Jnana wall, to that sword of Jnana, and it is completely annihilated. Aham Set, Aham Aduvahil. When the self, the I, is the pure I, the self of all, Arivuruva Mau Aham Ade Micham Adi. Then that self, which is of the nature of pure consciousness, that alone remains as the essence of Vedanta and Siddhanta. All the Vedanta and Siddhanta, the essence is that Arivuru, which remains in the quest for the self, where the false I is demolished without a trace, and the self remains as that one reality, that form of consciousness, the self alone remains, all alone, self-luminous. It remains by itself, and that self, that consciousness, is the essence of all Akila Vedanta Siddhanta. All the writings that we find in Vedanta and Siddhanta, this one task of the quest for the true self, resulting in the complete demolition or death of the false I without a trace. So what happens when this false I is demolished? We'll just sum up the verse. The verse is the proclamation by the Jnani as the end of a work. Just like Vedanta is the end of, you find at the end of each of the Vedas, they are the Upanishads. Similarly, this last verse is the Anubandha Antam, the essence of the Anubandham, the essence of Ulladu, Narpadu and Anubandham, the essence of Vedanta and Siddhanta is the singular task of inquiring into the nature of the ego and demolishing the false ego completely and remaining as that pure consciousness, the self, which is the essence of all spiritual teachings. Now, in fact, what it results in is that this whole earlier reading of 39 verses is also summed up in this one verse. This work of Anubandham we found primarily contained verses from the scriptures like Yoga Vasishtam, from the writings of Adi Shankara, from the writings of Allama Prabhu, and so on, showing us a bridge in one sense where Bhagavan's teachings shows that it is in the mainstream, that the mainstream is well connected. In fact, it is the essence of all mainstream sadhana. So these scriptural translations act as that. We find that these verses were divided into, the first is Satsanga Prakaranam, where Bhagavan gave us the glimpse as to how Satsanga makes the sadhana easy and perfect. Satsangatve Nissangatva, Nissangatve Nirmohatva, Nirmohatve Nischalatatva, Nischalatatve Jivan Mukti. Started like that with Adi Shankara. Then we saw that the Satsanga is like the Malaya Marutam, the breeze, the cool breeze that is blowing from the slopes, from the medicinal slopes of a hill, on to heal and to nurture us. And why then should the effort of the sadhaka be so important when that satsanga is there. Then we also saw that Kammayamam Kirtangal, Kalmannam Devangal, Ammahat Kakkinave Ahad. All these pilgrimages and tirthas are great, have their own greatness. But when looked at in front of or in comparison with or in relation to the great benefit of satsanga, then they all fade, because all the benefits given by all those put together are given in an instance by one look of the jnani. That was the satsanga prakaranam. Now, if we look at the satsanga prakaranam with this verse in perspective, if someone listens to Bhagavan and practices what this verse says, that is, only take to the search for the true I, destroy the false I, and abide as the true self, then all the benefits of all the satsanga that has been mentioned are automatically there. One need not go in search of other satsangs. If one can listen to this Upadesham of Bhagavan and sincerely do that, for whom is this thought, then all the benefits that are mentioned in those 5 shlokas are automatically, essentially, here and now available to us. The next segment was the Atma Tattva Prakaranam, or the segment on the Atma Tattva, the truth of Ishvara, the truth of the self. We saw some verses from translations. Devanyar Yarmanam Teruvan Emmanan Avya Mennal Aripadume. So there was a discussion, 2 discussions between the Guru and the Sishya, where the Sishya in the first shloka finds that when he remains as witness to his thoughts, when he remains without commenting as good or bad, or without moving the intellect while facing the thought, then as that witness, he has merged into the Devan. And that Devan is only one. There are not different Devas within each of the Jivas. When the Jiva goes in search of the ego and goes to that oneself, then what is found to be all existing and always existing is that witness, says the verse, which is the witness within everyone. That is the Ishvara. You yourself are that Devan. When you go there, you yourself are the Devan, says the verse. Another verse about the light, Olivanakyade, instead of the object, look at the light that reveals the object. In the day, it is the sunlight. When the sunlight is gone, it is the moonlight or the lamp. But all these lights are revealed by the light that passes as consciousness through the eyes, ears, etc. So that consciousness is the light that is understood by the mind, and that Atma which is at the source of all this is you, and you are that self, says that verse. Olivunak edupagal inaninak irul vilak. Olivunar oliyadu kan. Adu unar oliyadu olimadi. Madi unar oliyadu adu aham. Olidanil oliyum ni enaguru ahamadi. These 2 translations were followed by the verse from Bhagavan, Idayamam Guhai Napad. Hridaya Kuhara Madhye Kevalam Brahmamatram. Then Ahat Kamalate Amalachala Deham Kadanigar Jadam Idak Ahamenum Tigal Viladal Piranda Devantan Brahmamulate Piranda. These 6 verses were Atma Tattva Prakaranam. There was a Arohana, Avarohanam, taking us from the witness to the Chidakasha, to Bhagavan's statement of Aham Maham Iti Sakshat Atma Rupena Bhakti. From there, once again, the Avarohanam, and bringing us to Piranda Devantan, Brahma Mulatte Pirandan. And these 3 up, 3 down, the 6 verses were Atma Tattva Prakaranam. All that Atma Tattva stands revealed when we hold this particular verse's instruction. Just search for the truth of the ego, destroy the ego, and find that consciousness which is ever present, self-luminous as the self. The next prakaranam from 12th verse onwards up to verse number 27, we found to be Upasana prakaranam. The details of how Deham, the Ilivudal Yanennal Lihandiduga, and how Danam Tamam Velvi, Karmam Yogam Bhakti, and Vinay Vibhakti Viyogam Ag Jnanam, all these are Dehatma Bhavam Aral. Those 3 verses were instructing or revealing to us that all these great sadhanas revealed in scriptures, essentially Tanam, Tavam, Velvi, Bhakti, Yogam, Sahamal Savarim, Sadhunar, all these things, Turavu, is all summed up, and all the 4 parts are summed up as Dehatma Bhavam Aral, that I am the body, thought is to be erased, that's all. And that is what is summed up in the 40th verse. If we follow the 40th verse, then those verses are followed automatically. There were verses from Yoga Vasishtam, where the nature of the spiritual heart was delineated for us by Bhagavan. The source of the I thought is the spiritual heart. So when one searches for the source of the ego, as mentioned in the 40th verse, those verses of Yoga Vasishtam are also essentially carried out. Because what is the spiritual heart? Spiritual heart, in the initial stages of sadhana, Bhagavan would point out, it is as different from the physical heart on the left side, as quoted in Yoga Vasishtam 2. The physical heart pumps blood, but the spiritual heart is on the right side. But as enquiry takes hold, the physical reference is left behind, and the subtle body and the causal body are also transcended. And the heart is seen not merely as the spurana felt on the right side of the chest, but as the source of the I thought, which is the essence of the 40th verse. So we find all those 3-4 verses taken from Yoga Vasishtam in the Upasana Prakaranam also being completely carried out by this singular instruction. There are 2 verses once again from Yoga Vasishtam, where there are instructions to Rama by Vasishta Muni as to how in sadhana avastha one should relate to the world. We saw that incident from our Professor Swaminathan sir, who openly comments in Ramana's hall, in Bhagavan's hall, that how does Rama, the Avatara Purusha, need these instructions? Hold the heart and participate in the world. Ichaivar ulahil vilayadu veera. Play in this world as you want, but don't forget the heart. All these instructions, why does he need? Then someone reports that to Bhagavan, that professor is saying like this, that why should these verses be there in Yoga Vasishtam? Because does Rama need these instructions? Then Bhagavan asks, who has this doubt? Then they all jointly say it is professor who is having this doubt. Then Bhagavan says these verses of Upasana are for the one who is having the doubt. So those things we saw, those verses of how to play in the world are automatically carried out when one searches for the ego. Because the holding of who am I, the holding of the I thought is called as Ananya Bhakti. Is called as Ananya Bhakti, in which the pure I alone is. That means the Ishvara is worshipped as the self of all. In Bhagavad Gita it says, the one who worships the Ishvara like this, as the Ananya Bhakti, all his loads, how to relate to the world, are carried out by the Ishvara himself. So, in that 40th verse where Bhagavan says, hold the I, and this is the essence of Vedanta and Siddhanta, then those secrets revealed by Vasishtha Muni to Rama as to how to play in the world, at the same time not lose track of sadhana, are essentially kept in this verse, in this 40th verse. Then we find the Anubhava Shlokas. The Anubhava Shlokas, Arivunmai Nishtana, Anmavittava, Arivangi. He is the Jnanagni. Savaiman, Kala Kalanavan, Savinaimai, Viranana Satri. Automatically, when the ego is dead, as mentioned in the second Mangala Shloka in Ulladu Narpadu, Marana Bhayam Ikkulavam Makkalaranaha, Marana Bhavamilla Maheshan, Sharaname Sarvardam, Sarvodudan, Sautrar. Their ego is dead. Savendam Sarvaro. Will they ever be touched by Kala, touched by Yama, touched by death? Will they ever even take thought of that? They won't. So, automatically, the search for the ego, its reality, leads us to the self-luminous self, which alone is untouched by, untrammeled by the waves of birth and death. Now, the other verses in the Anubhava Shlokas, Tattvam Kandavarku Tame Valarmul. Buddhi Valuvum Vasantam Pondadume. Such a one who is pursuing the source of the I, automatically there is this beautiful flowering of everything in and around him. So that happens automatically. One need not cross-check. Automatically one realizes the greatness of the support that is available by grace, and one's whole life becomes full of grace. That comes automatically in Atmavachara, that you find yourself surrounded by that spiritual grace. Bhagavan says, when a doctor is pouring spirit on his wound to clean it, he says that, he is giving the spiritual bath. Every one of us should have this spiritual bath every day, he says. Now, the spiritual bath is nothing but reducing ourselves to that pure spirit, dropping the ego, completely annihilating, because spirit is there all. In fact, the all is not there, only spirit is there. Therefore, spiritual bath is the easiest thing if one follows that 40th verse and annihilates the ego. Then there is only the spirit, as Bhagavan says in that verse. There is only the Arivuruva Mad. That spirit alone, deathless spirit alone is there. Aduve Mitcham. There is nothing else. All that of birth and death is not existing. What is truly existing? Truly existing is only that pure spirit. And to take bath in that, all one has to do is dissolve the ego, dissolve the I thought. Tattvam Kandavarku Tame Valarumuli. Seimayulam Sendru Kade Ketparpol Vadanaigalte. How the three avasthas, they and the Samadhi Sthiti, they are just not important to the one who is the self. Nishtha is also, the Samadhi Sthiti is also not sought, because everything is the self. For Nishtha, Bhagavan gives the example of the reins of the bullocks being held like that. And the bullock and the cart is still. But what does it matter to the one who is sleeping inside the Vandituil one? For the one who is sleeping inside the car, how does it matter whether it is waking state, dream, deep sleep, or Nishtha? All those do not matter to the one who is abiding as Arivumayama, Arivuruvam, Ahamade Mitcham. If one remains as that self, then all these states are not important. All those Anubhava shlokas that we read are automatically there. Sanchita Akamiyangal Saravam Yanikku Ool Minjimanal Matrar Vetrar Kelvikku Vilambum Solpol. As though somebody who is uninterested to give some explanation to him, it is said that Jnani remains as Prarabdha. But who is the Jnani? Jnani is the Atma. Ahamatma Gudakesha Sarvabhuta Shayastitaha Aham Adischa Madhyamcha Bhutanam Antayevacha. The place where the Atma Vicharam, which is mentioned as the essence, is carried out and where it takes us is to that verse 10-20 in Bhagavad Gita, where Bhagavan proclaims that he is the self, he is the beginning, he is the middle, he is the end of all creation. That means what? That means only the self is there. The creation is merely an appearance. Time, place, fate, free will, all these are mere appearances in the self. Therefore, the self alone is. Those are the Anubhava shlokas. Then we found some cautionary verses. Some cautionary verses were selected regarding Noolarivu and fame. So from Anubhava Prakaranam, we move to Noolarivu Prakaranam. How there could be Tapo Brashtata or Yoga Brashtata if one yields to the fine pleasures of the intellect of book learning and search for fun, Makkal Manaivi Mudal. Now, those Noolarivu Prakaranam, the dangers of seeking the book instruction, valuing it, going into arguments like Sadashiva Brahmendra and trying to go after fame, but the Guru comes and saves him. All these are included. The care for it is automatically included in Atma Vichara, the search for the I. Because when we search for the truth of the I, all these residual vasanas will be clearly visible before us, will be visible before the sadhaka. When we dredge, when we go into and dig into that I thought, what will come out is, oh, I want to get approval from my old friends. I want the satsang to be bigger. I want, why are they not listening at all? All these thoughts which come are all ego. Or how great is my conducting of these things. Now those thoughts are automatically visible. The Noolarivu, the dangers of Noolarivu and the dangers of searching for fame. We found in Mahatma Gandhi's case how that that moment in that Bihar station where 1 lakh people are standing, he says he is able to see the ego rise up in great pleasure. But that he says that he could see it indicates that he was a great sadhaka even then. He could observe his ego rise, whereas usually in ignorance what happens? We identify with that ego and we try to take benefit of that pleasure and try to expand on that false pleasure and get trapped in that area. Those were the verses we found from 34, 35, 36, 37, 38. Then 39th verse was the Bhakti Marga's ultimate verse. That wherever you want, you can have Advaita, but never show it in action. So that practical instruction, when you come into action, should understand action is in duality. So don't say right is the same as left. Don't say English is same as Tamil. Have to be appropriate. You have to be appropriate and observe the rules. We saw the example of Paramahamsa giving the story of the person running in front of the elephant, saying that elephant and I are the same Brahman. Then Paramahamsa asks, was the Mahout not shouting, hey, get out of the way, get out of the way. The Mahout is also Brahman. That instruction is also Brahman. So in action, that slice of action which is Kausalam, which is the best, Karmasu Kausalam, Yogam Karmasu Kausalam, the best karma, the best way in which you can carry out a task, that is yoga. And that should be kept as Brahman, not all the non-following of rules. So in action, don't introduce the Advaita Bhava, but more importantly, that 38th verse pointed out to us that you may have Advaita Bhava, even that was the main caution of the verse. You could have Advaita Bhava even in the three lokas of Kailasa, Vaikuntha, and Brahmaloka. That is, you could say that you are the equal of Shiva, Vishnu, or Brahma. It may be excused, but you should never say or have the Advaita Bhava with your Guru. Is that verse? Because when we look in the relative area, when we look the journey of the Jiva, there is no way the Jiva can have any explanation that without the aid of the higher power, it could have passed through those millions of holes through which it could have escaped in each iteration, each moment, instead of taking the course towards the self, towards the spirit, towards the right inward direction, one could have gone into a million other directions. So that explanation we found, it required the necessity of the complete surrender to Guru and understand that it is with Guru's grace that one turns inward. The beauty of the 40th verse is such a supreme instruction in the Bhakti Marga. That is, the essence of surrender to the Guru is also included in this one shloka. Now, since we are including such a thing, that the essence of Siddhanta, the surrender to Ishvara, surrender to Guru, in this verse, let us go back to the Ulladu Narpadu verses which carry out this particular instruction as to how the rise of the ego is everything. There were verses we saw in Ulladu Narpadu where Bhagavan had summed up Ahandai undayin anaitum undahum. I am taking the last verse of that segment in Ulladu Narpadu. How come this particular instruction is the essence of even the preceding verse? When we were discussing the preceding verse, one of the devotees in the group had said, what an emotional and presentation from both Nandakumar and Shardaka. Because that's what Bhagavan brings. He brings out that complete devotion in the way in which he has blessed us. Now, that blessing is being included in the search for the ego. So, with great reverence, we have to see how this task includes the grace of our own dear Bhagavan, who has completely saved us. And when we look at our journey as a Jiva, it is impossible to explain how we could have held on. It is impossible for any Jiva to keep the Jiva Bhava and explain that I myself came through all this. No. Such a powerful verse is included in the 40th verse. If we carry out this instruction of seeking the source of the ego, then Guru's grace is automatically there. The Purna Anugraha of our Bhagavan is included in this 40th. You simply seek the source of the ego, I am there. No, let's spend some time on that. Why Bhagavan is including all that in this particular simple instruction. He is giving us, the sadhaka, a very simple instruction. Search for the reality of the I. That's all. And he says that includes all the Veda Sara, Vedanta Sara, and Siddhanta Sara. Now, this particular fact emanates from this verse that Ahandai Undayin Anaitum Mundahum. Karuvam Ahandai Undayin Anaitum Mundahum. Ahandai Indrel Indranaitum. Ahandaye Yavumam. If the ego arises, Karuvam Ahandai. If that embryo, if that small egg, if that the starting point of life of ego rises, relative life rises, then all relative life suddenly jumps up. Anaitamundaham. At that instance, the moment the ego splits from the self, the moment the ego identifies with a form other than the Spurana, the moment it identifies with that form, immediately everything arises. All this arises. Agandai undayin anaitum undahum. Agandai indranaitum. The yoga guru, the Sadguru says, if the ego is not there, then everything is gone. Now, does he leave us with that as an instruction, or does he give us an experience where we have a sense of that? May not be exactly that, but a sense of that. He says in deep sleep, where the ego is in laya, where the ego is not able to be active, then too everything is gone. Including the worry about whether I am acting according to Guru's instructions, Guru's grace or not, of the preceding verse. That thought is also not there in deep sleep. So, including that, everything arises, including the Samam Bonam of Bhakti Marga, everything arises after the ego arises. Ahandai undayin anaitum undahum. Ahandai indrel indranaitum. The moment ego is gone, everything is gone. Ahandaye yavumam. Therefore, whatever you see as plus, minus, good, bad, breath, non-breath, intellect, non-intellect, mind, knowledge, ignorance, all this is nothing but the I thought. All are permeated by the I thought. Ahandaye yavumam. That ego is everything. Adalal yadidandru nadale Vobudal yavumana vormudal pol vevaminda. Therefore, the search for that truth of the ego and the aham set arivuruva ahamade michamari, that search for the truth of the ego and destroying the ego is the essence of all renunciation or all tapas, says Bhagavan in that verse. What happens when that is done? We come to that point where we clearly understand Nanudiyad ulla nilai, Namaduvai ulla nilai. Nanudiyad ulla nilai. Because the moment the I thought arises, everything arises. The moment the I thought does not arise, nothing else objectively arises. Nanudiyad ulla nilai, Nam aduvai ulla nilai. Aham set, aham aduvatin. Nam aduvai ulla nilai. When the I is pure and identified with the self, Nam aduvai ulla nilai, Nanudikkum sthanamade nadamal, Nanudiya tannirappai sarvadevan, Saramal tannilayam, Saramal tanaduvam tannilayil nirpadavan. How, without the search for that ego, how can one go to its destruction, or how can one abide as the self? Therefore, those two verses bring us to the point where the search for the ego is the essence of all that we have discussed in spirituality. If we catch hold of this one verse and really meditate on the meaning and purpose of Bhagavan investing all the essence of Veda and Vedanta and Siddhanta in this one verse, then this one verse is enough for the sadhana and the siddhi. That if one searches for the ego, Akhila Vedanta Siddhanta Saratai Aham Unmayaga Arayana. The Guru, the Jnani is proclaiming the truth, the essence of Vedanta and Siddhanta, that Aham Sat, in the inquiry of the self, who am I? The ego dies. One transcends, goes into that self where the ego and its play are dead and non-existent. Nasato vidyato bhavo, na bhavo vidyate sataha. That which does not have existence at one point, you should take that it does not exist at all. As Gaudapadar says in the Karika, that which was not there in the beginning and that which is not going to be not there after some time. Why do you treat it as existing in the middle? This was not there before some time. This is not going to be there after some time. Why do we take this body to be existing or real in the middle, in that interim period, which we clearly know is a transitory period? The true existence is only of that self. The Arivuruvam Ahamade Mitcham Hari. So this one verse, it summarizes the entire teachings that we have come across, and the earlier reference to Ulladu Narpadu, or in one word it is saying the contents of Ulladu Narpadu, ending in Atma Vicharam. It contains all Veda Vedanta Sara, Siddhanta Sara, and I will complete the discussion by reading out Bhagavan's teachings on this matter, which I have forwarded in the group. There are about 4 quotations I have forwarded. The first one is from Talk 16, where there is a story from Yoga Vasishta which Bhagavan presents to us, where one brother, Punya, consoles the other brother on the death of his parents, and he says that, where are they? Why do you mourn them? They are all the life current. The life current only manifests as various life forms and pleasure and pain. If you hold the life current, this Purana, then the unnecessary parts fall away and all essence of everyone is present there as the Atma Tattva. Again, pleasures and pains, births and deaths are like undulations on the surface of the seeming water in the mirage of the ego. The only reality is the self, from where the ego appears and runs through thoughts which manifest themselves as the universe, and in which mothers and fathers, friends and relatives appear and disappear. They are nothing but manifestations of the self, so that one's parents are not outside the self. So there is no reason to mourn. Learn it, realize it, and be happy. As the Bhagavan teaches to the mother of the Ganeshans, Ganeshananna, that Nagalakshmi Amma, I think, that everything is present in you. Whatever you are seeking outside, they are all present in you as the self. If you are seeking the blessing of a parent who has passed on, that blessing and the parent are present as the self. If you are seeking some beautiful thing outside, that beauty and the object are present in you as the self. So that is how the first quote is there, that everything is present in you as the self. What is the practice for the seeking of that self? Constant search for the I. Bhagavan says, what is the practice? Constant search for the I. The source of I, the ego. Find out who am I. The pure I is the reality, the absolute existence, consciousness, bliss. When that pure I is forgotten, all miseries crop up. When that pure I is held fast, the miseries do not affect the person. So the first quotation covers that whatever you are seeking outside is already present as that life current inside us. So far as the false I is there, then all miseries crop up. When that false I is inquired into and removed and the pure I alone is there, then all the miseries drop away. The reality is present. Now comes a quote which gives us an intricacy in the journey. This is from talk 46. The false ego is associated with objects. This ego itself is its own object. Now that is a tricky statement which we can ponder over a little bit. That is, in self-attention, there is no observation of even the witness of I thought. So, even when we say I am able to see the rise of the I thought, we should still say that it is the ego which is seeing itself as an object. So, whenever we can see the rise of I thought, we should not say that that is abiding in the self, but we should take that as the ego making itself an object and looking. Whereas in the abiding of the self, there is no other to observe, there is only being. Do not confound yourself with the object, namely body. This gives rise to the false ego, consequently of the world and your movements therein and the resulting misery. Do not think yourself to be this, that, or anything, to be so and so, or to be such and such. Only leave off all false reality. So what does Atma Vichara do? It removes the falsities. Then the reality will reveal itself. It is not that Atma Vichara is giving us reality. No. The Atma Vichara is only to burn away. The who am I thought will burn away the other thoughts and will finally get dissolved in the Jnanagni, which is always present. Then we saw, if the I also be an illusion, who then casts off the illusion? So this is the verse in talks. This particular verse, Aham Set Aham Aduvagi. The I, Bhagavan says here, the I casts off the illusion of the I and yet remains as the I. Such is the paradox of self-realization. The realized do not see any contradiction in it. Aham Set Aham Aduvagi. Now what is this new I which alone is there? It is the ever-present I. It has merely dropped off its skin, like the snake dropping off its skin. The old ego is dead and gone. One is content in the Atma Swarupa itself. The I casts off the illusion of the I and yet remains as the I. Such is the paradox of self-realization. So this verse contains no paradox. If you go in search of who am I, the false ego is destroyed, and that which is ever present, the Sat, which has no abhava, that it never becomes non-existent, that rises and reveals itself. And the last quote I have taken is, the sea is not aware of the wave. Similarly, the self is not aware of the ego. Whatever path the ego might have taken, whatever ups and downs it might have had, I did this, I did that, I did all that, and then so and so saved me. All those paths get absorbed in the self. Once one is in the self, the ocean does not see the wave. There is no story to tell. It is not that till realization I had a story, I had a history to tell, then there is no history, not like that. There is no history to tell at all. There is only the self. There is no way. The entire creation is subsumed in the self. The self alone is there. That spirit alone is there. No forms and names are there. There is only the Satchitananda. There is only the Swarupa. There are no names and forms, and there is no recalling of this incident or that incident, except, of course, when in satsang someone asks something like the Swapna Simha, like the discussion in Swapna, since the Swapna food relieves Swapna hunger, Swapna water relieves Swapna thirst. Similarly, Swapna Upadesha relieves Swapna bondage. The Swapna, one has to come out of that Swapna and be in self. This is Bhagavan's instructions to us, that even the Guru Kripa is included in the search for the who am I, and in my own journey, in my own, I can humbly put that question doesn't remain unanswered. How I could as a jiva continue sadhana is not left unanswered. It is answered. How it is answered? Bhagavan has somehow given continuity to the sadhana, but the same Bhagavan is asking, ask who am I and go to the self. Don't treat me as apart from you. Don't keep yourself as your disciple and I am Bhagavan. Go to that self where Bhagavan alone is there, where Ramana alone is, where the self alone is. That is it. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. Let us sit and practice for 10 minutes. Namo Ramana. Namo Ramanaka.
Namo Ramana, sir. Prostrations to Ramana, shining as a self in all beings. By the immense grace of the self manifest as Ramana, we have gone across this journey which is in itself grace, the journey of the Anubandham. I was telling Nandakumarji the other day, it has been a great revelation for me, each of the verses, because each of the verses in itself, coming as Bhagavan's teachings and Bhagavan's words, will take us to the same summation of the 40th verse, which was so beautifully brought home to us today by Nandakumarji, how it is a summation of everything. So each verse in itself will take us there. And of course, when we journey through Bhagavan's teachings and Bhagavan's works with Nandakumarji, it is bound to keep the focus on self inquiry by that very grace. So each and every verse we had the joy of getting the insights on those aspects of our spiritual journey and also seeing how all that culminates in self inquiry and practicing self inquiry in each of the sessions. So, what can we say about this? Muruganar Swami says, Anbarku Arulmari. It's a downpour of grace that has happened and allowed the task to come to its fruition, its completion. Every moment is complete in Bhagwan's grace, but still there is a beauty in completing it. The Girivalam has been completed, the circuit of the Anubandham has been completed, and in a way, I was also thinking that we have a tradition in India. We have a tradition that those visiting Kashi first go to Rameshwaram and then they visit Kashi and then they come back to Rameshwaram. So I thought maybe by Bhagwan's grace, we went one round of Ulladu Narpadu, and that is right near the Samudra of the self. And then we have come to Kashi, which is the traditional place, the place of traditional wisdom. And we come back to, if we can come back by Bhagwan's grace, to Rameshwaram, to the Ulladu Narpadu, in the light of what we have now learnt from the Anubandham, it will certainly deepen our understanding of Ulladu Narpadu as well. This verse in Anubandham today, of course, reminds one of the completion of Upadesha Saram as well, where Bhagavan says, Aham apetakam nija vibhanakam mahadedam tapo. This is the greatest tapas, to abide in the self upon the destruction of the ego. And it reminds me of my favorite song by Muruganar Swami in Ramananubhuti, also called Sri Guru Ramana Prasadam. Later, he compiled these verses under that title, and he says, Arule amude ahame suhame terule telive shivame ramana ಆಧಾರ ಶಿವತ್ತನುಭೂತಿ ಉನಕೀದ ಸ್ವರೂಪತಿಯಲ್ ಕಾಣ್ಯನವೇ வேதாகம ஞான வெண்ணை உணவா ஊதாரி வந்தனை ஊட்டினனே வேதாகம ஞான வெண்ணை உணவா ஊதாரி வந்தனை ஊட்டினனே. Veda Agama Venai. Muruganar Swami says that Bhagavan has churned the Vedas and Agamas, and here Bhagavan is talking of the Vedantam and Siddhantam. And what has he got from there? He has got the butter, the essence of Veda and Agama. And what is that essence? Bhagavan says in Ulladu Narpadu, Adu nee en rammareigal aarthidavum. The essence is all the scriptures are saying you are that. And what are you supposed to do with that essence once you get it? You have to taste it, you have to experience it. And Muruganar Swami is saying that Bhagavan is feeding it to us like a mother feeds her infant with lot of love and with lot of cajoling. And how is that happening in self-inquiry? How is that essence of understanding Adini? If you don't abide in that, what is the use? Says Bhagavan in Ulladu Narpadu. So how does one abide? The best way is to turn the attention back to the self. And how does one do it? Bhagavan says, through self-inquiry, you can get back. So that is the way in which he simplified the process, as simple as it can be. It cannot be further simplified or further made palatable even to the infant, to be mouth fed, as they say, to be mouth fed to the infant by a loving mother. And again, another great devotee of Bhagavan, Shiva Prakasham Pillai says, Ennul karuttum manam adakkal, enbon padam valgave. All the scriptures which we have glimpsed in this journey of Ulladu Narpadu Anubandham, what are they trying to tell us? Shiva Prakasham Pillai says that Bhagavan says they are only trying to tell you how to control the mind. But Bhagavan says, உன்னை காண ஓர் நூலேன் என்று உரைப்போன் பாதம் வாழ்கவே. உன்னை காண ஓர் நூலேன். So Bhagavan says, to understand, okay, it is important to control the mind, but to control the mind, you will need practices, you will need various, you may need the supports, all the supports which have been talked of in the Ulladu Narpadu Anubandham. In each of the supports is in order to make us turn within. And then what? In order to make the mind quiet. And then what? One must abide in the self. Unnai kana or nulen. Why do you need a scripture? What do you need? You need to practice. We need to practice. We need to practice what? Turning back to the self through the inquiry, who am I? And that contains the essence of everything. And everything, as beautifully brought out to us today by Nanda Kumarji, everything is contained in Anubandham, the salient aspects of it, the satsanga, the upasana, the description and understanding of the state of knowledge, the dangers that we may face on the way, the need for bhakti. Because ultimately, Bhagavan says one must have bhakti for the self. Parival ulamuruha. Parival. There should be love. There should be melting love for the Sadguru. There should be melting love for the self. There must be great gratitude. Because if there is no love for the self, how will we abide in the self? After all, what is standing between us and the self? It is absence of love for the self. It is love for objects. Nothing else is obstructing the experience of the self. So the moment there is love, the moment there is bhakti for the self, automatically the mind will revel in the self. And since the Sadguru is the very embodiment of the self, if there is love for the Sadguru, where will he turn us? He will turn us only back to the self. And that is Bhagavan's love, which is manifest in his embodiment, in his every In every moment of his Sat Charitram, in his story, every moment, it is this abounding love which is manifest for us. And obviously, that love is manifest in Anubandham, and it is manifest in the fact that he has allowed us to journey into that, to journey, to understand so many beautiful aspects of our own approaches to the self, and to understand the beauty and the wonder of self inquiry that allows us to cross all these bridges. In self inquiry itself, it allows us to cross these bridges. But Bhagavan is showing us all these bridges which are to be crossed, because once one becomes aware of them, no matter whether one uses the other methods or one would have already used them knowingly or unknowingly, one may have used many of these supports, one may have taken, because Bhagavan would have given it to us in our life. In the journey of self inquiry, what happens is that automatically other things fall into place. Automatically things will come. Automatically mantras may come. Automatically tirthasnanas may come. Automatically the doing of nishkamya karma may come. Every aspect of life will be taken care of, because Bhagavan says the Guru from outside creates the right circumstance, and within he is feeding us that that awareness of the self through the simple question, who am I? Very simple. Only that little bit he asks us to do. Just ask yourself, who am I? Ask yourself, who am I? Whenever possible. Whenever possible, to bring attention back to it, turn the mind to self inquiry. And self inquiry automatically it takes us to the self. So that is why it's Muruganar Swami says it is given like a mother feeding an infant so very lovingly. It is given, that inquiry is given to us so very lovingly, and on doing it, as Nandakumarji ever so often tells us, the self just rises up, and it will rise up and envelop us. What is there for us to ask other than this? If at all we must ask for anything from Bhagavan, we actually don't need to ask for anything, because see how he has given this to us. He did not give us the Anubandham upon our asking. He had given it to us already. And even the situation to be able to dwell on it, He gives. Keladalikum. So He has given us this without asking. We don't really need to ask for anything at all. In fact, that is also one of the highlights of this journey which we have made, where Nandakumarji reminds us that when we get to the Aham Spurana also, don't ask of anything. Don't ask for anything from this Purana. Let it be. Let Bhagavan be. Let Bhagavan guide. Let Bhagavan take us. If at all we must ask anything, we must only ask, who am I? Who am I? That's the only thing we need to ask. All other things are taken care of for us by Bhagavan. And once again, we prostrate to Bhagavan for his immense grace in making this journey possible for us, and for being present in our lives in every way, in whichever way we wish to turn to him, of course as Bhagavan and as self-inquiry. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramana.
Ramananjali, Hridayanjali, Ramananjali.